Hi, everybody. It's Susan again, and here we're going to talk about the Taurus full moon sign by sign. And before I go into the signs, I just want to point out a few things about the moon that really stands out that we can learn from individually. I've already done a video in a general sense, just post-election, US elections. I did a Taurus full moon video. You can watch that if you haven't seen it already. And I had some really interesting reactions because I was basically suggesting that people try to work within their own frame of reference, within their own emotional and mental frame of reference, which is represented by the moon, uh, rather than projecting outwards. So, one of the reasons that I said that, and that got me accused of spiritual bypassing. So, people who are really holding on to the notion of I'm right and you're wrong, or my team is right and your team is wrong, or this particular scenario is going to work out, and with the doomsday scenario feeling very, very strong, fed by the media because we're all supposed to be terrified all the time. Those people will be very emotionally reactive. And now, on top of that, we've got a very stubborn emotional quality here with the moon in Taurus, and the moon represents not only the emotions but the mind, the way that we consider things. So the actual thoughts and the way we communicate, that is Mercury, but the frame of mind is the moon. And with Algol, and because both the moon and Uranus are conjoining Algol, there's a 2-degree, 10-minute orb of influence with Algol. And Uranus is backing up into the moon as the moon moves into Uranus, and both of them are conjoining Algol, which is it's very, very intense emotion. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a private context, in a personal context, where it can be extremely exciting, very inspiring, definitely an opportunity to change and move in a fresh, new direction, doing things that are different, doing things that are shaking up your day-to-day routine in a way that's conscious. But if we're not conscious and we're stuck on a way of thinking or feeling about something, then we can become very highly emotionally reactive. And there's a psychological term called emotional dumping, which happens quite often in the comment section of social media. And emotional dumping is when you don't sit with yourself and try and work your way through how you're feeling about different situations and why they may have arisen. And when we're doing that dumping on somebody else, it's a form of violence, actually. It's pushing your emotions outwards onto another person, and it tends to be a byproduct of unresolved some kind of trauma, whether it's childhood or some other recent perhaps trauma, where there's been a stasis, there's a kind of a stalemate in terms of emotional development. And if people remain emotionally immature, then they could spend their whole lives emotionally dumping on people, whether it's your barista or your neighbor or somebody that you're screaming at in a fit of road rage, or again in the keyboard warriors in the comment section on any particular video. And it's important to take care of that. And that was really the core message of the previous video on the Taurus full moon, because if we don't take care of that, we continue this cycle of aggression and othering and putting people in a position of evil, sort of not being able to see another viewpoint. And that is something that we really have to take care of. Now, in the context of that, I also was accused of being anti-Semitic. So I am not afraid to say that there's a genocide going on. There's a fair few, actually. There are at least 3 genocides going on in Africa at the moment. And then, of course, the most important, I think, one of our time, which is being protected and even fed by Western powers, especially Europeans and Americans, where we are seeing in real time an entire population being decimated. So I'm never going to stop talking about that. And that doesn't make me an anti-Semite. And it definitely is also very much a part of my spiritual practice. And this I learned from my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, who was very clear that we have an obligation to stand up for each other. I did this all through the 80s with regards to apartheid in South Africa. I sat down with people in real life back in the day when everything was done in real life. We sat down with letters that were lithographed or photocopied. You can still smell the wetness of the paper in those old machines that used to create copies with this kind of blue, purpley blue ink. And then we would sign them by hand and then put them in an envelope and address the envelope to different political figures, asking them to not support apartheid, asking them to block South Africa from sporting events, from cultural events, from political events. And this I will never apologize for. I have been a very proud and active supporter of BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction since 2009. I will never apologize for that either. And that is very much a part of my spiritual practice. And it has nothing to do with religion, because this is not a religious situation. So the point being that once we understand the motivation behind what we do, we just do it. So to be able to have that clarity, you have to get over the anger. And this is what Thich Nhat Hanh taught. He came to the United States at the time of what the Vietnamese called the War of American Aggression. And he befriended Martin Luther King, and convinced Martin Luther King that it was in his interest as well to speak out about the war, because predominantly Black and Hispanic and people in poverty, people of lower income brackets, were the ones suffering the most from being sent off to war. And he also decided that he could never participate in an anti-war march. He would not demonstrate in violence. He would not demonstrate in anger. He would march for peace. So he was a pro-peace marcher. And when he would march for peace, he said, especially the first march that they did in New York, which I think was 1966, in New York City, they marched in such a way that they were generating peace. And this is where he developed his mindful walking practice. And all around him, people were yelling in anger, and even yelling in anger at them for walking too slowly. And he said, we'll never, ever get to peace if we're spewing anger, even if we feel like it's righteous. But what we have to do is take care of our own emotions, to understand why the feeling is there, to deeply understand ourselves. That allows us to deeply understand another person. Because even in the face of genocide, even in the face of horrors in the world, there is a room for understanding the motives. There's a room for understanding the person, the people, the country, the nation that is perpetrating the act of violence. We have to embrace both, but we don't have to walk the tightrope between the paths. We should choose the righteous path according to what we believe is important. So I'm really, I'm going to emphasize this. I have no view. Go ahead and unsubscribe. But I'm not. It's not even worth saying. I'm not an anti-Semite. It's just the most absurd comment, because that comment comes from being completely unable to defend the circumstances in any other way except to shut someone down by accusing them personally ad hominem of something that is heinous. And that again is a projection, and that comes from this whole pattern of emotional dumping, which I'm trying to get at here. And I'm saying this specifically because of this moon in Taurus, very stubborn, very emotional, because it's the full moon is founded, let's say it's illuminated by a very emotional, potentially volatile and angry, anyway, Scorpio sun, with a Mars that is now very fiery, very also emotionally triggered in a trine to the North Node that it's ruling. And the moon is with Algol and Uranus. So there is a tendency, a potential for people to overreact. And once you overreact, once you overstep the bounds, once you act out in rage, you can't take it back. Like they teach children in school, when you crumple up a paper, if that's the feeling of the child that you've just been angry at, or you've just insulted, or just bullied, and you crumple up the paper, even when you try and smooth it out, it's never like it was. The paper remains crumpled. So I just want you to reflect on that in terms of how that might show up in your own life. Also noticing how it might show up in the lives of the people around you, where you recognize that it's pointless, it's not really worth your time to engage with someone who is emotionally reactive. And the best solution in this case, and here we come to our dear Venus, who is ruling this moon, in this square, in this square to the nodal axis, and she's ruling the south node that she's just moving into a square with. So that solution is to be gracious, to be understanding, to try seek to understand. Don't engage, step back. That doesn't mean that you are spiritually bypassing, if I can address that other accusation. Spiritually bypassing means that you are pretending that you're doing some kind of practice when you're not. Basically, it's not at all to say that you should put your morality aside or your spiritual practice aside, and allow things to happen. Again, as I said, certain things require standing up to, whether it be political or otherwise, but we need to clear our own emotions first to be effective. I'm going to give you an absolutely unbelievable example of this, which is a woman who many of you already know, who is called Medea Benjamin, who seems to be almost single-handedly taking care of the moral situation of the underprivileged and the otherwise trampled upon people of the world, where the US has been intervening. She's done this her whole life. She is Jewish. She has been accused of being anti-Semitic, which again, just, it's just so absurd that this statement means nothing any longer, unfortunately, because there is a real thing called anti-Semitism, and that is being nourished by the people who are abusing that phrase. Anyway, look to Medea Benjamin if you haven't found her already, and notice how she operates. She operates in a place of nonviolence. It's not that she doesn't get angry or feel frustration or feel that she needs to take action, but she's operating from a place of clarity because she's already cleared her own emotional baggage. So she's not coming with personal attacks. She's not coming from a place of reactivity, and she's not doing emotional dumping. And if you watch her in action, it's absolutely beautiful, absolutely skillful. And I know that Thich Nhat Hanh would support the way that she's engaging very, very powerfully, politically, and motivating people. Now, I'm not suggesting you all have to become political advocates. I'm just saying that these are the ways that we can work with our emotions and become effective. It is not effective to yell at somebody, scream at somebody, insult somebody, or write things in the comment section that are angry and emotional. It should be coming from a place of understanding, ideally. And until you can clear your own emotional baggage, you can't come to that place, and you will only be pushed away, because people, when they experience violence coming from someone, will always react either with violence or will simply walk away. So if you really have a message that you want to communicate, work on yourself. And that was the message of my previous video. Work on yourself. It doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean that you accept things that are unjust. It means that you don't bring your own baggage to the table when you ask for change. So I invite you, for the time of this full moon, to really contemplate on that, because this moon is a reflection, the realization, let's say, of everything that's happened in the 2 weeks before. And in a greater scheme, it's also going to reflect very much forward in terms of how we're going into the spring, when we have the Taurus New Moon, which we're going to have in April, when Pluto and Mars are going to oppose each other at 3 degrees, this time with Pluto retrograde, Mars direct. So here the opposition is weakening. That opposition was the 4th of November, so it's almost 2 weeks at that point from the full moon, where it's no longer as tense, but the tension remains. And the tension is remaining as long as Mars will be in Leo. Well, because Pluto is moving now for a very long time into Aquarius. So every time Mars moves into Leo, we get this opposition, this tension. It's even more manifest right now because of the retrograde of Mars. And so I'm just going to really quick, if I find the Taurus moon, hang on just a second. We're going to find the Taurus new moon of next year. We're going to have a look at that. Maybe we better add this together so we can see it more clearly. So let's put today on the current full moon cycle on the inside, and on the outside we see the Taurus new moon. So we see that that's happening at 7 degrees of Taurus. That's going to be broadly squaring Mars, Mars at 4, and that's opposition between Mars and Pluto is extremely tight now. That is the day before. The opposition is on the 26th of April. That might be the 25th for some of you in North and South America, for example. So I just want to point this out because what's going on right now makes it does matter, and that's going to come back in the spring. We're going to see Jupiter pretty much at the same place that Jupiter is retrograding right now. We're going to see Neptune in its new placement now, ruled by Mars in Aries. The North Node has moved by that point into Pisces, and that North Node is going to be conjoined by Saturn and Venus several times. So if you're looking forward to the next year and the cycles coming through the next year, you can see my annual forecasts. You can get those on my website. They're linked on my website. So all of this to say that we're in for a really big change, but the change is always founded on what's gone before. So just keep that in mind, because what you're doing right now is going to generate the next moment and the next moment. Everything is always about the present moment, but the present is founded on this, or rather the future is founded on this present moment quality. And so if you're angry, you're just going to go forward in time with anger. So I'm going to leave it at that, just to say that there is this wonderful opportunity at the same time that Uranus and the moon can stimulate. Algol is not always bad. On a global level, it can be, there's no doubt. It can be violence, it can be loss of leadership, it can be loss in lots of different ways, but on an individual level, it can also be great success. So this is an opportunity also to change it up. Change the relationship that you have to your emotions. One of my favorite gathas, or the Buddhist statements that my teacher would write in calligraphy was, "Am I sure?" Or he would sometimes write, "Are you sure?" And this "Am I sure?" or "Are you sure?" is really one of the most profound questions that you can ask spiritually. Am I sure of what I think? Not am I sure of the facts that I read in a newspaper. That's a whole different kettle of fish. I think we can agree that most of the time that answer should be no. But certainly, am I sure of what I believe? Am I sure of what I am acting upon right now? Am I sure that other person means what I think they do? How much am I projecting outwardly based on my inner feelings? And that clarity is going to create your next moment and your next moment and tomorrow and next year and the rest of your life. So we have this opportunity in every moment to change. And this is also Uranus with the moon. It's a change of heart, a change of perspective, a change of the frame of reference that we use emotionally. Changing our values. Maybe the values that we've been holding are also up for question, and rightly so. So there's a very broad trine here, still relevant, but broad trine with Pluto that is also a part of transformation. That transformation aspect of Pluto can come through shocks, especially if there's been a pattern that has been held on to stubbornly, emotionally, in that fixed way, like the Scorpio Taurus fixity. of certainty, and Mars fixity of certainty. But there is also this lovely sextile that is happening here with Neptune, and that can create a softening and an ease of understanding and a compassion. And this is what we need right now. And this, what is called a minor grand trine, I mentioned this quite a lot in the 2025 readings. That minor grand trine is going to be a blessing. It's going to be something that allows us to see that there is a different way, but it's always coming from the inside out. Don't wait for a savior. Don't wait for some deceptive politician to come and rescue you and promise you the world and then deliver only what's good for them. This is really the only thing that we can ever rely on in our life, is our connection to what is real and true within ourselves. And all of the rest is distraction, basically. So let's have a look here. Remember that Venus, she's all about relationship, all about harmony, and finding the way through in a way that is reserved. A Venus in Capricorn doesn't make displays of emotion. She's not going to scream on the street at her partner. She's not going to yell in the face of people that she doesn't know based on unresolved emotions. She's going to hold back. And this would be the invitation as Venus is squaring the nodes here. This is our solution to this current dilemma, and she's ruling that moon. The message for me couldn't be any clearer. So let's go for, we're going to go sign by sign here. I'm going to just pull it back. So we have Aries on the ascendant. And start with Aries. So Aries, this full moon is happening in your second house with the sun in your eighth house. So always a full moon is always with the sun in opposition, the moon rather in opposition to the sun. And so it's highlighting something about your access of money, perhaps your values as well. This might have something to do with the quality of relationships as well. Who are you spending time with, and how is that working for you in terms of what supports you? You've had Uranus in that second house of what supports you. That includes your sense of abundance. It includes your actual accumulated wealth. It's whatever you can generate. It's whatever you are able to create in terms of something that supports you. It could be your income, for example, your own personal resources, including, what you bring to the table, is also the second house. So something here is in your awareness and it's being shaken up very, very clearly. There can be some real good fortune, perhaps in terms of finances. There might be something that feels sudden out of the blue. And that's going to bring you some new horizons in terms of your finances. Observe how you're relating to other people, how that relationship to other people may need to be redefined. That maybe there's something here that you need to understand. And you can go back to the new moon that was in Scorpio to have a better understanding of that, because there will have already been a realization around that at the beginning of November, 1st of November. Venus, who is ruling this second house full moon, is in your 10th house. And that's also really helpful. It shows that there's something that is supporting you in terms of the way that you show up in the world, or in terms of your colleagues or work hierarchy, the people that you work with. There's some kind of support that comes through work-related things and or social things, meaning that the people out in the world are seeing you in this new capacity, or they're seeing you in a good light, and they're also bringing you something that's quite constructive. Now, that's the end also of 16 years of Pluto in your 10th house. So this is also the very last time where you can see how your values and the way that you relate to yourself through abundance, or the sense of what is available to you, is affecting the way that you show up out in the world. Mars, your ruler, is in the 5th house. So there's an opportunity here to be very creative, very inspired. Mars is trining the North Node that's in your 1st house. And that's bringing you a lot of creative, perhaps also in terms of investment, or in terms of taking risks, this opportunity now that you feel confident about. Venus at the top of your chart, very supportive. And this risk-taking energy with Mars in the 5th that's trining the North Node in your first house. And then on top of that, Uranus with the moon and Algol can bring you some interesting success. So very, very interesting time to really stick your neck out a little bit, Aries, and to recognize the sum total of the last 16 years of the work that you've put in to show up out in the world. So good luck with that, Aries, and I'll see you in the next video. So Taurus, of course, this is your full moon, and this full moon is a very special one because this is kind of, again, a reference to something that's been building and growing for some time now, at the very least since the beginning of 2024, as Uranus approached Algol, which it has been basically since the summer. And now the moon is also with Uranus on Algol. This is not the degree of the moon. Remember, the moon is at 24 degrees exactly, in opposition to a 24-degree sun in Taurus. So if you have anything from, if you're a Taurus with anything from, let's say 22 until 26, or let's say 27 degrees, you will be feeling this quite powerfully. But it's something that you want to think of in terms of how you realize how you are out in the world, or how you're behaving, how you're feeling about your life. And your ruler Venus is up in the 9th house, which is also the house of good fortune. It's very helpful because she's also thinking in terms of, why am I here, or what's my purpose? What is the attitude or the value that I bring to the things that I do? Does that work for me? And this Uranus moon is maybe shaking you up a little bit and saying, actually, I'm seeing where things are working or where they're not at all working, and where I want that to change. Now, Saturn also, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but Saturn is also stationing direct at this time in your 11th house. So whatever the thing is about your vision for your future, or perhaps who you're spending time with, or perhaps how you're earning money through the gains of what you earn from what you do, that also comes to light. There's something that feels like, now I get it. I get this thing. Jupiter is still retrograde in your 2nd house, where you have been putting a lot of thought around money, a lot of thought around abundance, or around the issues that stem from that. Perhaps you've had to spend a lot of money, because Jupiter in Gemini also does have that quality of not necessarily holding on to the money. It's not necessarily in very good dignity, so you might spend quite a lot, or at least you might feel like you do. That doesn't mean you're going to run out of money. It just means that you might feel that you're wasting money, or that has been an issue up until this point. And so do focus on how you feel now about your own self, and about what you are realizing about yourself, with reference to how you see yourself going through the future. Why am I here? What do I have faith in? What do I believe in? Listen again to the introduction. Perhaps listen also to the video I did, if you haven't already, on the Taurus full moon that I posted on, I think it was the 6th of November. And get some ideas there, because it's very personal for you. It's a very important moment of growth. Something is changing in terms of your inner experience and your psychological nature, or in terms of what makes you feel secure. And that is going to continue from now until the 6th of January, where Mars is moving through your 4th house, and it's trining the North Node in your 12th, that it's also ruling. Mars will come back to that place. Go and listen to the 2025 forecasts so you can hear more about how that's going to transpire. But as Mars is trining the North Node, and you've got that North Node in the 12th house, you might also realize, I've done this to myself, whatever this thing is, or I'm realizing now where I need to change course or take action in a way that brings me the results that I want. And that will be where Pluto then goes into the 10th house and shows you how you need to change, or how you will be changing in the world outside your front door. And so this is a really interesting dynamic for Taurus, an opportunity to really know, how am I doing in this moment, emotionally, psychologically? Is there something I'm clinging to that I really need to let go of? And can I let go of these things even in such a way that I still use things, I still have possessions, but they don't own me. So I have objects that I own, they don't own me. This for Taurus is a great lifelong practice, because there can often be this whole story around trying to find security whether it be emotional or psychological. So make the most of your full moon, Taurus, and I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, this full moon is happening in your 12th house of the places that we don't see so easily, or that are hidden from our awareness or hidden from our sights. So the 12th house is everything that happens either when our eyes are closed, or it's how things are operating behind the scenes, kind of like the operating system for your phone that you rely on so much, but you don't really think about. And this is the unconscious place. This is the place also of ancestors and things that are far, far away at a physical distance in other lands, for example, faraway people, faraway clients, perhaps. The house, it's also the house of self-undoing. It's the house of loss as well. We have Venus in the 8th house. So there's something here that suggests that there's a gain or some benefit through relationship at some point around this time that you're realizing that is quite supportive. Now, Venus is not in her best dignity in Capricorn, but she's well behaved and she does the right thing. So you're understanding some aspect of what you get either from clients or from a partnership or from the way that you relate intimately with somebody. And you're understanding this, how this is functioning with you. This has been a wonderful year since May 2024 for Taurus, because for Gemini, because Jupiter has been in your sign. And Jupiter in one sign really is a great boost, but most importantly for Gemini, that Jupiter rules your 10th house and your 7th house of relationship. So you have a personal upliftment this year that is a distinct advantage over many other signs. And you can use this awareness, whatever this 12th house awareness is, of your own behavior and your own patterns, where you may have issues that require your more conscious awareness, conscious attention, more energy perhaps put into, even if it's long distance relationships, for example. And you'll find that you get benefit from doing that. You'll get a lot of a depth of understanding. So the moon is the mind. It is the understanding of the memory, or the frame of reference that we use going through life. And your ruler Mercury is about how we translate that out in the world. It's about how we communicate that to people. So the moon is always there in our awareness of how we perceive the world, how we feel about it. And Mercury is your way of expressing that. And now you have this opportunity to become aware of how I really feel, how that's actually panning out. And with Mercury, your ruler in the 7th house, you might need to speak up or tell somebody how you really feel. You might need to discuss things with somebody else. And especially because Mars is in the 3rd house, it seems that there is some need to communicate something that is based on what you feel is important to you right now. And that Mars is also ruling the North Node in your 11th, which is showing you where you want to go with your life. And that's been since July 2023. So there's been a lot of reflection around that, a lot of action taken on that. And now with Mars in the 3rd, you might find that you really are ready. You've got some kind of courage or willpower that you didn't maybe feel before. And now you feel like you can get going. And it's based on what the moon is showing you. It's based on what the moon is trying to highlight for you, that you've been working through for quite some time, perhaps only just these 2 weeks, but it could also be since the new moon in Taurus of the spring of 2024. And what you're producing now, what you're working through now, is going to be reflected in April of 2025. So there is something very rich in sitting still for a little minute. Gemini, just take a minute and sit down quietly and reflect and listen. Listen to yourself, and remember that listening is also very much part of communication. It's not all about the outward expression of things, although I'd say you've got a lot on your mind that you want to communicate right now with Mars in the 3rd house of the mind and communication. So this Venus in your 8th is showing you also that this has something to do with intimacy, and it has something to do with your psychological or emotional secret sort of awareness of self, or relationship qualities, or what you benefit, what you get from other people. And this can also be factored in. Keep that in mind, because Venus is ruling the South Node in your 5th and your North Node she's moving in the direction of the North Node, where she's going to bring a lot more awareness in the next couple of months by February. So, right, that's a lot. But anyway, there you are, Gemini. Work deep inside at this time, and you'll see the results coming in 2 weeks or in 6 months. So Cancer, this of course is your ruler. The moon is very important for Cancer. You always want to pay attention to what's going on in terms of the moon. And for you, it's happening in the 11th house of your vision for the future, the way you connect with people socially, the way that you connect outwardly in the world. And it has a lot to do with how you're seeing your future, let's say, how you reach into the dream of your future. You have Gemini in the 12th house, speaking of dreams, and so there is a lot of that. There's a lot of forward planning. There's a lot of imagining that can, at times, perhaps have felt like a waste of time or a distraction or a need to escape. But it also is an extremely important moment in time, because you've got the North Node on your 10th house, which is trying to get you to do something in your life that's kind of for others. It's reaching out of yourself and asking you to make a contribution, asking you to step out in some way. And then, of course, you're also with the Uranus as well in the 11th house, the shaking up, let's say, of what you are, how you're participating out with groups of people, and how you're reacting through your engagements with people, whether that be through social media or whether that be through collective groups of people that you share political ideas with, or religious ideas, or just social ideas, and how you want to participate. And all of that is also changing. And that change can be very, very beneficial. It certainly helps if you're conscious of that and understanding what your overall desire is, where you really want to put your attention. Venus is in your 7th house of relationships, and she's squaring the nodal axis. So she's squaring the south node in the 4th house. So there's something here also about your something around security, or around your emotional, psychological security, around your home security, and that you're letting go, and you're moving as Venus is coming to the top to reach this point of the North Node, and which she will do in January. She's trying to get to this place of new understanding through different relationships, new ways of showing up with people out in the world, and in terms of a vision for your life, for your future. So this is, I think, very favorable. The full moon is showing you something that will also be a result of the last 2 weeks of understanding or effort. And it also is going to show you the results by the new moon of Taurus in, what did we say? It was the 27th of April, 2025. So always check where the moon is. Always check what's going on with the moon for Cancer, especially if you have a Cancer moon. And anyway, sun and rising sign, very helpful to look at that. Notice where you might feel this tension between what you desire or how you communicate that, and what you need to do, how you need to show up outwardly in the world. Mars is in your 2nd house of money, so perhaps this is also connected to gains that are coming through new relationships or client relationships, or different ways of establishing your business, which also reflects back on the North Node in your 10th house that Mars is trining and that it rules. So this is a good time to plan, organize, sort out your finances, and think long term. Right, so Cancer, good luck with that. I'll see you in the next video. So Leo, this is happening in your 10th house of career. Super important when lunations happen in the angles. And so when we have an evidence or some kind of realization up in that 10th house, it's showing us where we are on the right or wrong track in terms of how we engage socially, maybe how we engage with our career, or maybe how we engage in terms of what we feel is our relationship to our vocation, but also how we engage with our parents, because the 10th house represents the parents or authority figures in some way, shape, or form. So you can look at this as an opportunity to make a big change or to have a strong realization and really pay attention to the inner messages that you're getting at this time. So your sign is on the ascendant at the time of this lunation, which makes it even more powerful because it's really like the signature energy of the ascendant for the lunation, and you're ruled by the sun. And so the sun in Scorpio is very important for you. It's as a reference point because it's in the fourth house. And when the sun is in the fourth house, we're not necessarily very sure of ourselves. And especially in Scorpio, it's where we need to go deep inside, go deep in terms of our psychology, go deep in terms of our family connections and inherited patterns and maybe psychological foundation or feelings of insecurity or security. So that the dynamic between a Leo rising and the sun in the fourth house can show where there's some challenge around authority figures in general, and maybe issues around showing up. Now you've had this opportunity with Uranus in the 10th house for since May 2018. So you're being challenged again and again in how you show up out in the world. And with the moon here, now you're seeing how you're doing. It will work in your favor to become really aware of the, let's say, the undercurrents that motivate you. What are your ambitions? What are your drives? What is it that makes you do what you do? And is that working for you? Is that what you want? Now you've had the North Node going through your ninth house of your sense of vision or dharma or purpose, life purpose, what gets you out of bed, the ikigai. And that is has been since July 2023. And Mars is ruling that North Node from your first house. You've got Mars in your first house for quite a while. And it will leave your first house on the 6th of January. But really think about that in terms of this moment in time, where you can strategize and plan to take action. Very important for Leo right now to think long term. Jupiter is in the 11th, also pointing to a different vision for the future. And that Jupiter will rule the North Node when it moves into your 8th. You can see the annual forecasts to get more information about that. So Venus is in the 6th house of service, being there for other people, where Pluto is just about to leave and where it has been for 16 years. And as Venus is in a square to the nodal axis and ruling the 3rd house south node at this moment, there might be something that you realize about how you can be of service, a way of showing up that brings harmony, that can release maybe old goals or old wishes, old ways of relating to people, old ways of communicating with people, and bring yourself up to date with what you feel you are inside, how you feel your own value, your own worth, and certainly how you value others, how you connect with others, because this will be massively transformed when Pluto moves into your 7th, finally on the 19th, just 4 days after. So good luck with this, Leo, and I'll see you in the next video. So we've got Virgo now on the ascendant, and the full moon is happening in the very fortunate 9th house of the chart. That's a really lovely place to see the moon, because it highlights something of what you hope for. It's a very hopeful place. We don't want to be too pie in the sky, though. The moon in the 9th can be very idealistic and sometimes, overly so, where you're not necessarily seeing what is real or what is true, but you're seeing what you want to see. That might be something to reflect on as, Neptune is in your 7th house of relationships. So maybe there's something to learn about that, because Neptune is sextiling the moon and Uranus, as well as the sun in your 3rd house. So there might be something here that you're realizing about how you see yourself in terms of your life, how you want to maybe alter your purpose, or how you value what you've got faith in, or your values that drive you, whether that be spiritual or philosophical values that drive you. Venus is in your 5th house, which is quite lovely. That's very nice for harmony in relationships. She's the exaltation ruler of your 7th house of relationships. And Saturn is now direct in your 7th house of relationships. So whatever felt like it was a little bit sticky, maybe a little bit sluggish, or causing you to perhaps even have second second thoughts can also be liberated at this time. It might be feeling a little bit more optimistic, and maybe a little bit more clear, and you start to operate from this place of more harmony, or maybe there's just more time that you find more time to actually be with the people that you need to be, where prior to that it was a little bit hectic. You do have Jupiter in the 10th, which is quite busy when you're thinking in terms of your career or the things that you do out in the world, how you participate out in the world. So notice if you've been scattered, maybe that's something that the moon in the 9th can show you. Am I putting my energy in the right place based on who I think I need to be in this lifetime, or how I want to be of service? Because that's a very strong motivation for Virgo, how I can show up for other people. Part of the dynamic of Saturn being in the 7th house is to show you where you are on the dynamic, on this polarity between victim and martyr, where you are maybe worried too much anxiety, too much feeling of being put upon, and not taking responsibility for how you reach out into the world. So this is part of what the moon can show you. Venus can show you how you can do that through joy, through actually just hey ho, having a little bit of fun. Saturn rules your house of fun, so that's not always your first inclination, Virgo, but it's okay. Have some guilt-free fun at this moment with a vision of why you're doing what you do, and start to understand that. Now, Mars is also trining the North Node in the 8th from the 12th. And so there's something here that can be about how you operate behind the scenes or between the sheets or behind closed doors. And that's showing you also how you're relating to intimacy with people. And we see that Venus is squaring the nodes here. She rules the South Node from the 2nd house. So there's some way also of valuing yourself or valuing relationships in whatever way, and how you show up in relationships. And this will be part of what this full moon reveals overall, because something to do with relationships is a big part of this story. You have Mercury in your 4th house, that's your ruler. And Mercury has been opposed and is building to an opposition to Jupiter. It will, a couple of days from this full moon, oppose Jupiter. And that opposition is teaching you something about this need for you to find security at home, maybe modify things around the home, or maybe express yourself psychologically or emotionally, at the very least towards yourself. Try and figure that out. Think about things for a while, or organize what's going on at home. If this is about work, that is also very possible, because with all this stuff going on at the top of your chart, you might decide that there's a different way that you need to work from home. Your ruler's in the 4th. But I would need to see your natal chart to get into more of the weeds like that. So whatever this is, Virgo, it's got something to do with what you think or who you think you are in the context of what you do in your life. So bring the highest value to that with Venus ruling this Taurus moon. All right. And so Libra, your ruler, Venus, is squaring the nodes, and you still have the South Node in your sign at the time of this full moon. The full moon is happening in your 8th house along with Uranus. So there's something here that you're understanding about either your hidden emotional nature or psychological nature, or issues around relationships in some way, shape, or form, or how you're benefiting from relationships, or the quality of the relationships that you have. This can also be about what you share overall with people. It's not only finances, but also that emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy, financial intimacy. And since Venus is ruling this from the 4th house, this might have something to do with home, where you live, the way that you feel emotionally, or whatever the security issue might be in terms of relationships. Where the North Node has been putting a lot of your attention, it's also coming through where you live, perhaps, or with whom do you live, and also what you realize you need to feel secure and happy in your life. Since Venus is ruling that South Node as well, that she has been since July 2023, moving through your 1st house, there's something here that you want to understand about what you need to let go of in terms of how you relate to people. I recently did a video on Saturn, and because Saturn is in the 6th house, it's just stationed direct now at the time of this full moon. It might be interesting for you to listen to that if you haven't already, Libra, because I do talk quite a bit about how this way of showing up for other people has been affecting you, and I won't go back into that here. But also we have Mars up in the 11th at this time, and that's showing you a new vision for yourself, new goals for your future, a new way of showing up, just as you've got Jupiter in the ninth, giving you this bigger picture of what life is all about. What do I want out of life, and who am I in my life? And the moon is showing you the behind the scenes things that might reveal ways that you might have been afraid or need to overcome psychological or other types of fears of showing up fully. And that can also be one of the motivators for over accommodating other people. And it's that eighth house is revealing the secrets or revealing the things that we kind of know, but we are not really happy to look at. So with Uranus now on the moon, you're going to look at them. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be very supportive, though. I think with Venus ruling this from your fourth, you can only gain in understanding. And Pluto has been there for 16 years. You're graduating from Pluto in the fourth house, which has completely reconfigured your emotional and psychological life, as well as your home and family life. So good luck, Libra, and I wish you all the best. So Scorpio, this is very interesting for you because the moon is in your seventh house of relationships. And so this is tying very closely together with the ongoing transit of Uranus, which has been in your seventh house, changing your relationships, changing your relationship to people, and also the people in your life, business partners, as well as influential friends and lovers and marriage partners. And that's been since May of 2018. And so now we have the moon right there with Uranus and the sun in your first house. So any Scorpio sun, moon, or ascendant between, let's say, 22 degrees and 27 degrees will feel this the most. Because of the Uranus impulse as well, the Uranus presence there. But you could almost say from 22 degrees right through to the end of the sign, really, because the moon moves so fast. But anyway, it's going to affect you quite personally in those later degrees of Scorpio. And this is something that you will recognize in terms of relationship patterns. You might realize something about a relationship that you're in, or the person themselves, or the quality of your relationships, and then you kind of get this aha moment where you understand what to do about that. It's going to reveal something to you, and then the moon immediately moves into the eighth house where you get a deeper understanding, a deeper awareness that's coming either psychologically or emotionally about that, the consequences, let's say, of whatever relationships are under review, let's say, at this time. And so this change can also be a change of attitude, because the moon also it's representing how we feel or think in our frame of reference, our mental, emotional frame of reference. And there might be a big change of attitude around relationships in general. And that's especially true because you've got Saturn in your fifth house that is now moving direct. I will guide you to listen to my recent video on Saturn stationing direct, rather than going through the whole thing, but you'll see it there for your sign. But Venus is also in the third house. She's ruling this lunation from the third house, and in turn is ruled by Saturn. And so there's something here about communication and how you choose, or how you need to maybe realize the short-term motives or your desire nature with Venus in the third, and how to connect with people, how to communicate about that, maybe how to express something around these topics. So a very interesting time for you, Scorpio, because at the same time, you've got your ruler Mars up at the top of your chart, and Mars in the 10th house is extremely powerful. So whatever this is may also relate to issues around work, because Mars is trining the North Node in your sixth house that can represent your everyday work. And then the Mars in the 10th is very much about career orientation, or your sense of ambition, your personal achievement, your reputation. So there can be something here with Mars in the 10th where you just become really geared up for change, for dynamic change And that's going to affect your everyday life, and the focus, perhaps also on health, if there is any kind of health issue. Notice whatever is going on that might require your attention. When the moon moves into the eighth house, you might have some more insight into that, and you can take responsibility for whatever's going on, and find the right people to help you with whatever's going on. When Jupiter's in the eighth house, it's a really good time to be finding people like counselors or clinicians or people that can help you for whatever, if there's a medical issue, for example. All right, so Scorpio, good luck with that, and I will see you in the next video. Sagittarius, we've lost our moon now. How annoying is that? So we're going to go back one day, Sag, and so we're going to throw off our timing here. We're going to pretend that this is actually, boom, there we go. So Sagittarius, we're going to pretend that this is actually the full moon. It's not yet full at this point, so the moon is actually full at 24 degrees, but we just want to keep you on the ascendant here. So Sagittarius, you've got this full moon in the sixth house of your everyday work experience, your health, your mental health, as well as physical. And this is something that might be showing up quite strongly for you right now, where you realize very powerfully what you'd like, how you need to deal with that. And especially because you've had Saturn going through your fourth, do listen to the Saturn stationing direct video at this point of the full moon. By the time the moon is full, Saturn is direct. And so it's almost coincidental. So do listen, because that also will have affected for quite some time now your mood and your sense of what's possible for you, what makes you feel secure, and also issues around home. And so now you might be just realizing something. This is a great opportunity for you to take care of yourself. The moon represents the body as well as the mind. It's your sense of self in terms of the little s self. It's the sense of who I think I am, whether it's the body or your mind or your emotional nature. Whereas the sun is the self with the big S, and that's the consciousness. And so the consciousness is illuminating this little sense of self, and you're recognizing something about how your everyday life is panning out, and giving you an opportunity here to revise something or become aware of patterns that you might need to take charge of or respond to differently. Venus, that's ruling the moon, is in your second house of self-worth. And that's really helpful, because that boosts your self-esteem, it boosts your self-worth, it also boosts your sense of values, what you find important. And then based on those values, you'll conduct yourself every day. And you're just about to lose Pluto from the 12th, second house, which will be a huge relief as well. And if there has been any issue here around feeling financial struggles, that will be relating, completely dependent on the chart. It's not for everybody, but you will have realized how much you've gained in terms of self-worth, and also your relationship to abundance. Now, some of you, that means literal wealth and physical terms, but for some of you, it's just a massive boost to abundance in all ways, that you realize what you have come through and how abundant you have become over this period of time. And now Venus is there kind of showing you, yay, that's what we've done. We've accomplished this now. And only 4 days later, Pluto leaves. The other aspect of this is that your ruler is in the seventh house. It's been there since May, so it's not news to you, but Jupiter is moving retrograde at this point. So you might feel that things with reference to relationships or with partnerships of all kinds, business or otherwise, have been under the microscope, or maybe you've been feeling things around your career or your sense of what your life goals in terms of your achievements and your career ambitions or your vocational ambitions, social ambitions, they've been maybe feeling a bit sluggish. But again, this might be an opportunity to say, well, actually, that's a good thing, because I can't really sort myself out socially or outwardly until I sort myself out in terms of my health, my overall mental and physical health. And also that implies a daily routine, a daily frame of reference that I need. And that comes back to the Saturn in the fourth, that gives you good foundation for this moment. And that's where the North Node will be moving in January. So there's going to be a lot of attention on that sense of, how do I structure my life? How do I give myself this good foundation? and avoid, overdoing it, or avoiding burnout, or avoiding just too much feeling unsettled. I need this new thing, this new awareness or new frame of reference for my physical well-being and a constructive, let's say, day-to-day life. So make the most of this time. It's a really good time for you to pamper yourself, Sagittarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Oops, we're moving day by day. Didn't mean to do that. Hang on. I'll go back to the hours. There we go. So now we've got Capricorn on the first house, and this full moon is happening in your fifth house of love and joy and happiness and puppy dogs and rainbows. And so the fifth house is also your creative expression, and it's the way that you connect with your children or your children's lives, and the children that you might have, or how they're doing in your life. All of those things can come through the fifth house, where you're realizing something about all those things. It's about romance as well. So this might actually be about a specific romantic relationship, especially because Mars, your exaltation ruler, is in the eighth house, which is very much about sexual intimacy, but also emotional intimacy, psychological intimacy, how you connect with other people, what you get from other people. That can be either super passionate or it can be testy at the moment. Mars is moving very, very slowly, and it's in a trine to the North Node that is ruling in your fourth house. So there's a lot of work for Capricorn to do on your personal foundations in terms of what makes you feel stable, what gives you a psychological or an emotional foundation, and that's in a square to Venus. So there's something here that is showing up for you that makes you realize there's something that you want out of relationships, or something that you want out of your own way of feeling in life. Venus in the first house is really lovely, really, really nice to have. And she's ruling the South Node in your 10th house, where it's been since July 2023. And there you've been thinking in terms of what you realize you don't want any longer in terms of a career or an ambition. What used to light you up, what used to get you excited, it's like not really this anymore. And so this moment in time with the moon in the fifth house is an opportunity to say, well, what brings me joy? What do I want out of my life? How do I want to express myself? Life is short. How can I show up in my life? Rather than worrying about maybe the social structure aspect of it, or the prestige aspect of it, how can I find my joy? And this is really the bigger message for Capricorn overall, but especially at the time of this lunation. So your ruler is actually stationing direct on the day of the lunation. So we're just building up to the lunation at this point. It's at 24 degrees exactly. And so your ruler Saturn is moving it's very, very slow at this point, but it's going to be stationing. And that means that this moon takes on an extra significance for Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign, because there's something here about what you need to become aware of over the last few months and put into operation over the next few months. Now go to my Saturn direct video, the Saturn stationing direct video, which I just did recently, where you'll get all the information about that in good detail. And I won't go back over that here because this is more focused on the moon. But suffice it to say that you are really here about trying to understand what really brings me joy. How can I express myself out in the world? How can I really see what's going on in the life of my children, or with the notion of having children, for example, and is this what I want? And there might be some surprises in there that are quite useful. They might shake you up and make you realize certain things that you hadn't thought of before. So you can find some really creative answers in all of that with Uranus there. So good luck with that, Capricorn. I'll see you in the next video. So Aquarius, this is the last time that you're going to have a lunation in any way, shape, or form, any lunation in your chart without Pluto in your sign for 20 years. So enjoy that big blank space that's there, whether you're a sun, moon, or ascendant in Aquarius. And know that Pluto will be in your first house every time now that there's going to be some lunation at any point, or any other aspect, of course, for the next 20 years. But this matters a lot because the moon is squaring your ascendant. So there's something here that you're realizing that you want to change, that you want to become aware of in terms of your emotional or psychological sense of security, with reference to your family, perhaps your lineage, especially since Pluto and Venus, which is ruling this moon, are in your 12th house of ancestors. Can also be about self-undoing, things that you become aware of that you realize you shouldn't be doing, things that you are not doing that you realize you should be doing. And that lunation with Uranus is going to give you a bit of a shake-up emotionally. So it can be very inspiring, can be very fun. It's a good idea to do that deliberately, to go and do something that brings that kind of fun into your life. If it's something to do around moving, for example, or deciding something needs to change in terms of your actual home or issues around property, for example, this also will be very inspiring. There can be some very interesting ideas, things coming up. There can also be, depending on your natal chart, some awakening around things that you didn't know about and that you need to take care of. Your ruler Saturn is in your second house, so that has been perhaps making you feel a little bit down on yourself. Not so easy to feel your value since March 2023. But now, this day at the full moon on the 15th of November, your ruler is stationing direct, which is really, really good news, because that means Saturn will be moving the whole way out of your second house of your self-esteem, your sense of abundance, what supports you, your income, your valuables, what you bring to the table. And that has been maybe a feeling of not being good enough or being stuck in some way. And that will clear your second house by May of next year. Listen to the Saturn video that I did, the Saturn Direct video that I posted on YouTube a few days ago. And you'll get a lot of information for you personally, because it's your ruler, Aquarius, very helpful. Your modern ruler, of course, is Uranus, and because it's with the moon, it makes it even more interesting for Aquarius, because there's something here that you're ready to change in terms of your structure. And so the next time there is a full moon in your fourth house, Uranus won't be there. Will it be there? Sorry, it will be there one more time. Sorry, there you go. Uranus will still be there one more time. That full moon will be the last one in I guess it's May of 2025, and then that will be the end. So one last penultimate full moon with Uranus in your fourth house. So take the lessons from that, see what it is that's trying to tell you about what you need to understand, or how you want to show up for yourself, perhaps psychologically, emotionally, what needs to be dealt with at home, how that might need to be dealt with emotionally. North Node is in your third house. There might be a new way of expressing yourself or communicating, because it's ruled by Mars in your second house. And it's showing you something about how you're engaging with another person or with people in general, especially since the Sun is also ruled by Mars in your 10th house of people out in the world or people that you connect with in your career. And the moon is showing you some aspect of how you are feeling, perhaps also feeling about your achievements, or feeling about your ambition, or feeling about your career in general. Venus is in your 12th again, so that can have something to do with connections with people from far away, including family members that are at a distance, or ancestral people, people that are actual biological ancestors or spiritual ancestors as well, especially with Pluto there. And Venus rules the South Node in your 9th, where you kind of have lost a feeling of purpose, or you are shedding an old feeling of purpose, or an old faith system or belief system or philosophy of life, for a new one. And you've been remodeling that since July 2023. So this Venus is part of the solution to whatever this issue is with the moon. These are psychological houses. So I think for Aquarius, there's some focus that needs to be put on the unconscious mind, on your general overall kind of feeling of worth and your psychological nature. What truly is important and is of value to Aquarius? That's a really important question for now. And Jupiter, of course, is also showing you what brings you joy, what makes you happy. But with the retrograde, it seems like that's also under consideration. This might be something to do with children, especially as the moon is in the house of mother and household and family and so on. And then Jupiter is in the fifth house of children. So there may be some issue that needs resolution around children, parenting, and how that makes you feel and how you might bond or connect with your children or not at this time. So notice where that might need facelift. Jupiter will be stationing direct in your house of children, ruling your house of finances where your ruler Saturn is. That will be the 4th of February. So things will shift dramatically by that time. Right. So Aquarius, good luck with all that. And I'll see you in the next video. Oopsie, Pisces. We just blew right by you. Sorry about that. So we have now for Pisces, the full moon in the third house. That's about your communications, about your mind as well. That's the joy. The third house is the joy of the moon. Because the moon changes all the time. It's all about connection, whether it be emotional or the frame of the mind, for example, the mood. And of course, because the moon is changeable, the third house is also all of those things. And that's why the moon loves being there. It's all about dynamic change and motion. So one of the challenges is that that third house for Pisces is fixed. And so Pisces can be sometimes a bit stuck on, it's a fixed sign, Taurus, meaning Pisces can be a little bit stuck on emotions, can be focused on a certain attitude, which requires questioning. And that's a helpful thing to do. I'd say that's been something that Pisces has been doing a lot of since 2018. So from May 2018, Uranus has been going through the third house of the mind and communications and connections with people, local space, neighborhoods, siblings, extended family, and so on. Now the moon is showing up in this particular spot where it's going to show something new to you in terms of either communications or the mind and the memory and the attitude to things, the emotional, mental attitude to things. And it can also be something to do with travel. Very constructive. If that is about travel, can be very exciting, can be very informative. The sun is up in the 9th house, which is actually the joy of the sun. So that's also very good for long distance travel. And the house, your 12th house of long distance travel is ruled by Saturn, which is now stationing direct in your first house. So can be very interesting time for Pisces to travel. Your ruler Jupiter is in your 4th house. So there's something that you might be contemplating or reflecting in terms of your family or your space, your local home, for example, the space around you, your property, your family of origin as well, the lineage you come from. And that's also going to be a bit of a boost, a mental boost, I'd say, for most Pisces, having that Jupiter in the 4th house. It's just a kind of a feeling that almost balances out having Saturn in the 1st house, which can feel very restrictive. But the mental and emotional boost and the feeling of positivity that comes from Jupiter in the 4th is a great support, because your ruler Jupiter, ruling, of course, Saturn at the time that it's crossing through your 1st house, is mitigating what can otherwise feel heavy with Saturn in the 1st house, or Saturn crossing the sun, or Saturn crossing the moon, for example. Venus is ruling this new moon, sorry, the full moon rather, in your 3rd house from your 11th house of gains. You also have the North Node in your 2nd house, which is also a money house. It's about income, and that is ruled by Mars in your 6th house. So you're putting work in terms of achieving money goals or achieving outcomes in terms of work, obstacles and things that might need to be overcome, or you're going to have the determination to overcome them. Venus is showing you this vision for a more maybe harmonious or social or inspired future. Venus in the 11th is great for socializing. It's great for meeting new people, great for connecting in terms of friendships and social groups or political groups, or Yeah, spiritual, obviously religious groups, things like that, people that you connect with a shared belief, shared ideology, or shared purpose. And Venus is squaring the south node that she rules from the eighth house. And that's about letting go of patterns of intimacy, or letting go of patterns of how you share resources with other people, or what you get from other people. This has been a time since 2023, July 2023, of letting go of relying on other people and moving towards more self-reliance. And Mars is certainly contributing to that right now. If this is about health, if especially if it's about mental health, for some people that can be the case. This is a fantastic time to take charge of that, because Mars is in the sixth house, going to be actively working towards resolution of health issues. If there's an issue around inflammation, most depression, by the way, is really because of inflammation. So that inflammation is in the body, but it affects the mind. So this can be something that you can work towards healing and understanding. And as it's ruling the North Node in your second house, it boosts your sense of value, maybe refocusing what you value in general. And then Venus is showing you what that represents in terms of the vision for the future, or what you can gain, because Venus is gains as well, in the house of gains. Right. What else can we say about that? Yeah, get out the door, I guess is what I'm going to say, Pisces, because with the moon there in the third house and Venus in your 11th, it's a very social time. Mercury, also a very social planet, ruling that Jupiter, making you feel kind of good, um, kind of, just satisfied, santosha. This is the contentment that you're striving for overall in life. And so get out the door, Pisces, and make the most of this, with the sun in the ninth house showing you the way through your sense of purpose, and the moon showing you how to communicate and resonate with others about that. I like this for Pisces because it's sextiling as well. Earth and water go very, very well together. So, and Venus is your exaltation ruler as well, Pisces. So she's happy up there in a mutual generosity with Saturn that is in your sign. Right. And so we also have a mutual exchange with Jupiter and Mercury, who are in each other's signs. So a very, very interesting time for Pisces, because it's pulling something of yourself out into the world at the same time. So make the most of all of that, Pisces. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.